Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to talk about building emotional regulation skills and building secure attachment. It's a lot of stuff, so I'm going to just touch on the points quickly. And then if we need more videos about this topic, we can touch on each point separately if needed, okay? And so what I'm seeing when I see you guys in sessions and anything of that sort, I see the common dynamic here. I see that she feels very deeply, kind of like an empath. A lot of people might call that an empath. She expresses her emotion. He withdraws, she panics, and then he either leaves or detached. Now, it's not always gender correlated, but that's just more common of a dynamic. However, a better way to even put it is that someone feels deeply, usually the anxious, preoccupied, or fearful, leaning anxious. They express their emotion. The other person withdraws. And I should be honest about this one. I was actually the one in my relationship that was the withdrawing one. I'm better now a lot. I don't do that stuff anymore. But that was actually the dynamic. So I do want to understand that it's not just gender correlated. So the other person withdraws, the more empathetic one, the more emotional one panics, and then the other person, they detach or they leave. That I never did. I was never that kind of person. But some people do that. They leave. And you want to break this cycle. And so you want to become more emotionally regulated, but not less emotional. That's the difference. And so the first point that we need to understand is what we're going to call pausing to process your emotions. We want to regulate your emotions before expression. So that's how you kind of balance this, okay? And so take a 5-10 minute pause before initiating any heavy conversation. Write the emotion down if you need to before saying it out loud. Practice understanding the need behind the emotion, okay? You need closeness. Do you need reassurance? What do you need? And why understanding the need is very important because that helps you to communicate more clearly, which will allow the other person to not get overwhelmed by a bunch of emotions without instructions. Because why avoidance shut down is because of the lack of instructions and the high levels of emotions. When avoidants are younger, when they're a child, they're taught not to process their emotions. They're taught not to feel emotions. And most of the things their parents said was instruction based. I want you to be a millionaire. That's what a parent may say. I want you to be the best athlete in your class. I want you to run a mile in 6 minutes. They will say that. It's instruction based. I want this from you. You are the child that needs to do this. You're my trophy. You're my investment. It's like a lot of pressure. That's how kids who are avoidants, who become avoidants when they're adult, that's how their parents talk to them. And I'm saying this from experience. And so and as a therapist, all of my patients who are avoidants have a childhood similar to that, especially dismissive avoidants. Fearful avoidants tend to have both sides, among other things. And so that they will not understand an emotional expression because they were not raised in that way. And so instructions are really important. So that's why naming the emotion, the need behind the emotion is really important, okay? So understanding that you don't even have to say it out loud yet, okay? And now the next point is when you're saying it out loud, okay? You want to speak to be heard, not to vent. Venting is overwhelming for avoidance. And eventually in the marriage and relationship, you want them to get more comfortable venting, hearing you vent, but it doesn't start that way. It's very overwhelming. And so expressing emotion isn't the same as communicating a message is the best way to put it. So a very healthy way to grow if a person is struggling with emotional regulation and wanting to be more secure is kind of shifting from communicating with this person instead of kind of emoting or having some emotion at this person, okay? So communicating is very important. So you want to think about what is the impact you want your words to have. You don't want it to be, how do I even put it? If your goal is to get close to him or her, you don't want your words to create distance. That just creates ineffective. That's ineffective. And so what do I mean by create distance? When you say something, avoidants are terrible, you're detached, you're evil, how do you think that's going to land? Like, let's just pause for a second and think about it. How do you think it's going to land if you are insulting somebody and who they are? You're not going to get why would anybody, most people will feel, why would I want to get close to someone who is insulting me? It's going to be uncomfortable. You think you're expressing your feelings, remember? But we had mentioned you don't want to emote at them or express at them. You want to communicate with them, okay? And so let's give an example. Let's say the feeling is you feel hurt and sad. Just a basic example, okay? So you mention your feeling. That's the first way to kind of have this framework. You might say, I'm feeling a little hurt. Now you want to explain. I'm feeling a little hurt because we didn't get to finish our discussion last night. And I understand you need space and I didn't want to crowd you. You want to empathize, okay? However, what I'm wanting is more connection. So maybe this weekend we can have that conversation again. Okay, so this is the best way to put it. You are expressing how you feel. You're explaining how you feel. You're empathizing with them and you're giving instructions. That is the basic foundation of a sentence that lands the best with avoidance. Okay, so let's just go over that again really quick. You express how you feel, you explain it, you empathize with them, or you acknowledge them. Acknowledge is a good version as well. I acknowledge that you're trying, you need space, and I wanted to give you credit for that. And the last point is instruction. Okay, and so the next section we're going to talk about is building emotional security over time. And so you want to dial down the intensity, but not the authenticity, okay? And so some people, especially they're anxious, preoccupied, they kind of express larger emotions. And it kind of makes the closeness feel overwhelming. It's almost like if I express this and it really shows up, this person might come closer. But the reality is that high emotional intensity is actually, it creates disconnection. And actually does not teach intimacy or connect and make intimacy more possible. Instead, what you want to do is show small emotions over time. My significant other, he calls it this. God, I just forgot it. I just had it. He calls it, he doesn't speak as direct as I do. So what he does is he almost like indirectly speaks. And he calls it like, I forgot what he says. He calls it like little at a time. If I remember, I'll share it with you because maybe some of you guys who are with an avoidant, maybe they have said that. Small doses. He always says, say everything in small doses. He doesn't say that with just me. He says it with his family members. Anything, small doses. He's like the small doses guy, right? You can say any emotion in the world, just say it in small doses, right? That's how he is. Say it slowly, and then he kind of collects it. For me, I'm okay with you saying it. Just say it clearly and with a lot of instructions. And I know you guys are going to make fun of me for that, but that's just the way I am. I've gotten better, but that's how I've always stated it. Don't tell me I'm mad at you. I don't, like, why did you do that to me? Like that, yes, I can understand that and I can appreciate that, but what happens next? I need that. For him, he needs like small doses to process it. And then also instructions helps him as well. And so those are kind of like, we used to be avoidant, so that's why I gave you those examples of how it can feel like. But instead, what you can do is, let's say the example is, you never make time for me, I'm sick of it. That's the emotion, okay? You can say something like, I really love when we're close and I appreciate when you make time for me. Can we do that more often? Maybe set up a date every Thursday. That's very important. The instruction part is really important, okay? And now reassurance requests versus like emotional dumping is also kind of important. You can say, can you remind me that we're okay? After that fight, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. Is everything all right? That can be just reassurance, okay? Instead of that kind of over-functioning where it might be like, do you even care about me? Are you going to leave me? Those two things have the same emotion underneath, but they're communicated a little differently. So that's just a sub-point, okay? And the last point is we want to break these patterns long term. And so what you can kind of do is explore your own emotions. Every now and again, why do these feelings hold so much power over you? Were these feelings ignored growing up? That's really important. Did you have to escalate to get attention when you were a child? It's really common. We see this a lot. What do you believe about the concept of being calm or not talking about things? Do you feel like it's scary? Do you feel like you're going to be unheard? Do you feel like you're going to be uncomfortable? And sometimes these feelings, you might realize your parents actually punished you for showing emotions, but then they kind of gave in because they were frustrated. Really common with anxious, preoccupied. You'll notice that your parents, they didn't like caring about you. They almost gave up, gave in. Okay, my child's crying and now I kind of have to give them a bottle. It's really sad to see this, by the way. But it's like the child is crying and crying and crying and the parents are like, ugh, I don't really want to take care of them. But then let's say they're crying and now they're like banging on the crib and they're like hungry, and now the kid is like, the parent is like, okay, I give in, I'll give the bottle. So you were taught that that's how you're supposed to do. You might be even ignored for such a long period of time until you absolutely have to express that emotion. So you pick that stuff up. And so this is kind of just a very quick guide, but to kind of summarize, you want to name the emotion before you express it. You want to pause before reacting. You want to clarify and be clear about the instructions of what you need. You want to ask for reassurance, not proof of the love, reassurance. You want to communicate more in a instruction-based emotional way, but not in a way where it's blame. And then you want to regulate how you feel before any emotion that you have, just to be aware. And then you want to self-validate where these things come from. So I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.